Okay, well, welcome back, folks. Thank you for sticking with us, and I hope you're liking and subscribing. It means the world to Eloise and I. Today, we have a very special guest. We have Daniel Lewis with us, and Daniel's got a really interesting story in the fact that he once had was number one in the world for the Rejuvenation Olympics, meaning he was aging at the slowest pace in the world, ahead of the famous or infamous Brian Johnson, who's spending millions of dollars a month, and Daniel was spending significantly less. So inevitably, I got fascinated with this story. I wanted to know everything about Daniel, and found him on Instagram. And Daniel, now you're here. Thank you so much for coming on.
Hey, thanks for having me, Ben. I'm excited to be on.
Oh, it's honestly, I've been writing questions for days now. So yeah, long time coming. So yeah, thank you for doing this in advance. I'd love to start as I think the natural place is where did this interest or passion for longevity come about? How did that get started for you?
It started a long time ago. Even when I was just a kid, when I would see people that were very old and in very bad shape, I would think, "Oh man, I really want to make sure I don't end up in that position when I'm old. I want to be more mobile. I want to be stronger, have a good quality of life." And then that thought stuck with me. And then in my 20s, in my early to mid 20s, I started just very casually, occasionally reading some of the research that would come out in the longevity space, some articles. And at that point, there was definitely not as much research as there is now. The field is really much more well developed now, but back then, in the early 2010s, there would have just been. I think there was research on fasting, some research on mTOR, um, but we really hadn't started the explosion in research that we see now. But I just kept on reading the research over time, and more kept on coming out. And as I learned more, I started going deeper and deeper into it. And now it's definitely one of my hobbies, one of my favorite hobbies. Just keep track of new articles and papers that are coming out, skim them, find the ones that interest me, and read them. And it's a good way to stay up to date on this really interesting and fast moving space.
100%, 100%. I think what's really interesting is this community has grown, the last decade plus quite quickly. But I think what the key inflection point has been is it's now an optimization problem you can actually measure, right? The introduction of these tests, like forget the name, like what's it called? Rejuvenation Olympics test,
The
the
Dunedin
Dunedin.
pace.
Correct. Thank you. Yes, the Dunedin pace, where this is now an optimization problem of okay, we know we can do it, and it's just it makes what was previously a bit more sort of intangible tangible, right? So when did you first start? Okay, I'm gonna try and quantify these different metrics of age.
Um, I'd say it was back in really in 2023 with the start of my official protocol. When I first took the Dunedin pace of aging tests, I took actually the full suite of tests offered by the company True Diagnostic. That's when I first made the big leap into quantifying aging. Before that, I had just relied on the standard lab values that you could find in in a physical exam with a doctor, and those are really helpful as well. But they really just show you how healthy you are. They don't really provide a good glimpse into your aging. You could have someone who's young who has bad cholesterol values, for example, and they know they need to lower their cholesterol, but when they lower their cholesterol, are they actually younger? And so there's a limit to how much information you can get from them. So these epigenetic tests and telomere tests, I think, are the next frontier in quantification, and those I started in 2023.
Okay, brilliant. So we're going to get a little bit technical. So I think it might be good just to sort of get everyone on the same page using the same
Mhm.
vernacular, right? So could you just very briefly, like, what is a telomere and what is epigenetics before we dive into it?
So epigenetics refers to the it's the science of studying how genes are expressed. So you have the same genes, the same DNA in all the cells in your body, but in different cells in your body, certain genes will be turned on and certain genes will be turned off. And the pattern of how those genes are turned on and off is what instructs your cells to behave like a neuron or like a muscle cell or like a blood cell. And then with age, that pattern of gene expression becomes dysregulated. And so these epigenetic tests are all seeking to measure um, to measure your pattern of gene expression, to measure methylation sites that it can inform us as to gene expression, and then track how that correlates with age. So it's an estimate of your biological age from looking at your epigenetics. And then with respect to telomeres, those you can think of them like caps on the end of your DNA, like a shoelace cap. And with time, they fray, just the way a shoelace cap frays. And then they fray. The more your cells divide with each division, the telomeres become a bit shorter. Eventually, they reach a critically short length, and the cell can no longer divide, and it enters a state called cellular senescence, where it becomes dysfunctional and has to be cleared from the body. And there's only a certain number of cells in your body, a certain number of cell divisions that you have. So ultimately, telomeres, I think, do represent a hard limit on human lifespan. So it's important to study them as well, in addition to epigenetics.
Well, I was right in thinking that you could explain that far better than me, and I'm pleased I asked you to do it, not me. Yes, okay, very clear. I remember I read The Telomere Effect by Elizabeth Blackburn in like 2017. I picked up in Abu Dhabi airport, and yeah, I was really, really taken by that book, and it kind of got me into the longevity space as well. Not quite to your level, but definitely sparked an interest. When you came to formulating and I guess designing your protocol, before we get into the specifics of what were the mental influences and cognitive influence about how you were actually going to approach this?
Well, I wanted to make sure I had a good understanding of the science, and I also wanted to identify which aging metrics I should be optimizing for, because if you read the research in this space, there's all these different metrics of aging, and like 12 of them have been grouped together into the so-called hallmarks of aging. And I was thinking, well, which of these 12 hallmarks of aging are really the ones that are upstream of the aging process, or near the root cause of the aging process, and which ones are downstream? Because it'd be really difficult to try and address each of the 12 hallmarks with a single protocol. So if you can identify the most important ones and address those, then hopefully by addressing those, benefits will spill down to the other hallmarks that are dependent on those key hallmarks. And in my opinion, I think the two most important ones are epigenetic dysregulation and telomere attrition. So I zeroed in on those two when developing my protocol.
Okay, that's a super interesting place to start. So, what does your protocol look like in the context of the epigenetic focus and the keeping your telomeres healthy focus?
So I'd say it consists of three main parts. There's at least three parts. So there's diet, there's exercise, there's supplementation, and then I guess you can add on a fourth one, which is lifestyle. So I think they're all very important. I think you have to have the diet, the exercise, and the lifestyle really in a strong place, and then you can add on the supplementation. And basically the idea of the protocol is to get the body's Krebs cycle and methylation cycle working really optimally, and the lifestyle, the diet, and exercise all help with that. And then once you've accomplished that, then you add in the supplementation to kind of rev things up, get those two cycles spinning faster. And then by doing that, you certain biochemical processes get sped up, and you can actually help slow down, or maybe, hopefully the goal is to prevent, but at least slow down telomere loss, and then also partially reverse some of the epigenetic dysregulation.
Okay, nice one. So you quickly before we get, I think let's take each pillar and maybe we'll go through it then. But before we get into diet, which I think we'll start with, um, you mentioned methylation. Did you get
Mhm.
any genetic tests to see if you struggle to methylate certain things? Did you have any of that? And did that play a role?
I did. So thankfully, I don't have any serious genetic variants that impede my methylation cycle. But I would definitely think it's a good idea to do this sort of genetic testing before starting a protocol like this, so that in case you have a problem converting um, folate into methylfolate, for example, or some sort of key block in your methylation cycle, that you can address that before revving up the whole process.
Okay, good. I fall in that camp. So
Oh, really?
yeah, definitely. There's another one which I have the slow breakdown of dopamine in the brain as well, which is kind of interesting. It actually explains a lot. So that was interesting to get back. Okay, big focus on methylation. So I'm if you could describe what your diet was and why did you choose that diet versus like keto and other things?
So there's a lot of good science back in the Mediterranean diet. That's the diet that I chose to go with for my protocol. Um, there's research showing that it correlates with long life, with good health. I think there was also a study recently showing that people that eat the Mediterranean diet actually have a healthier proteome than many other people. Proteome, that refers to the profile of proteins that you have circulating in your blood. So there's that science backing the Mediterranean diet. And then also from an unscientific perspective, I just really enjoy Mediterranean food, and I love seafood and olive oil and fresh vegetables. So it was kind of a win-win for me.
Mm. It's, I mean,
An
yeah,
easy diet for me to comply with. And really a diet that I'd already been eating for a long time just because I enjoyed it. And I knew generally that it was healthy.
oh, big
So
time.
I could just keep doing the same thing, just maybe a bit stricter.
Yes, okay. I mean, a bit of feta and a nice bit of grilled fish with some
Yeah.
vegetables. It's just living the dream. But why did you choose that diet over, say, something like a pure hardcore ketogenic diet, which also got some good research around it, right? But like, why did you just focus on that one, or did you explore any other alternatives?
I guess partly to be a bit conservative. So we know that there are many regions in the world where people do eat the Mediterranean diet, and they have the countries, say in Southern Europe along the Mediterranean, have some of the highest average life expectancy in the world. So it it was reassuring for me that this is a diet that has withstood the test of time, and that besides scientific studies, you can just see in practice for centuries it's been successful.
Mm,
Um, of course, there's a lot of confounding variables. There's other lifestyle factors in the Mediterranean European countries that help them have a high average lifespan, but I think diet is an important one. And then also just my own personal preference. I think sticking to a ketogenic diet would have been very hard for me. There's other diets, that are very strict, that are designed to optimize health, but looking at what it would be easiest for me to comply with, the Mediterranean diet would have been definitely the easiest for me to comply with, just because I like the food so much. And yeah, on the ketogenic diet, I think I definitely would have started missing certain foods and would have been tempted to cheat. So I think
yeah.
it's important to pick a diet that has good scientific backing, but that also you will work for you for your own taste preferences.
Okay, that's super clear. So maybe let's dive into what each meal looks like. So breakfast, what does that look like in your world?
So I'm currently practicing intermittent fasting, so I skip breakfast most days unless I'm traveling and I know I won't be able to eat later that day. So most days I wake up and I just have a black coffee in the morning, and then lunch is my first meal of the day.
Okay, brilliant. And what do you eat for lunch?
For lunch, it's usually there's a like let's think of a typical meal. There could be a can of sardines. There could be an egg, uh, a salad, a couple pieces of toast. The salad would be dressed with just plain olive oil and vinegar, no packaged dressing, some sort of vegetable or a mix of vegetables, and maybe a tangerine at the end. Yeah, or whatever my work cafeteria serves, and thankfully they serve pretty healthy food. So I usually pick whichever option is most in compliance with the Mediterranean diet, and they usually have at least one option like that. If not, then I'll just have them make me a big salad with a piece of salmon or chicken on top.
What I really like about your approach is it seems to be sort of simplicity itself. And I mean that in simplicity is the highest order of cognition as opposed to something more complex is superior. I think you got to go through the complex to get to the simplicity. And also quite refreshing to hear that you don't need to be spending like ridiculous sums of money on special food and things that aren't accessible, right? You know, like didn't expect you to say a pizza toast. That's pretty normal in a good way. It's not something completely inaccessible and out of reach for most people. Okay, so pretty like Mediterranean diet. That's, you know, people can. I'm sure our listeners understand what that entails. Like really good healthy fats, colorful vegetables, really like high quality sources of protein, a lot of fish.
Mm-hmm.
But you also, I imagine you're in a calorie deficit every day.
Yeah, a very mild one, about no more than 10%.
Okay, so your cortisol, because obviously, you know, you look at natural bodybuilders dieting for a show who are in like a bit of a chronic deficit all the time. Their cortisol would spike super high and their androgens would drop as a result. Was your cortisol pretty fine on that kind of deficit?
Yeah. So I did testing through a company called Cyfox that does the whole panel of standard lab physicals from your home. And my cortisol was always well within the normal range, actually on the lower side. But that might be because I've been intermittent fasting for years. I imagine if someone, when they first started intermittent fasting, and if they also did the 10% calorie restriction on top of that, that could be a bit of an adjustment for them, a bit of a rough adjustment. So they might experience maybe a temporary cortisol spike. But for me, when I adopted the 10% calorie restriction, I didn't, at least from my labs and from based on how I felt, I didn't experience any cortisol spike.
Okay,
And then my testosterone, since starting the protocol, my testosterone actually increased a bit. So I think, I mean, there's several variables that could be responsible for the increase in testosterone, but I think supplying the body with a good source of healthy fats through the olive oil or through the omega-3 fatty acids in fish like sardines and salmon provide good building blocks for the production of hormones. So that could maybe offset the potential for reduction in testosterone that mild calorie restriction could entail.
I think what you're describing is consistent with some of the literature, especially when people start. I know you're not in keto, but if you zoom out of the specifics and look at more the switch in metabolic states, i.e., how metabolically flexible one is, if you go from burning purely glucose all the time to then something which is a little bit different, such as the Mediterranean or your intermittent fasting or keto, I think there is an adjustment period where cortisol does rise a bit. But as you know, 10% calorie restriction. So I imagine you did the maths on that pretty regimented, right?
Yeah. So for a while, I was tracking everything pretty carefully until I looked up on Google all the calorie content of different foods that I ate, and now I've digested it enough that I can just kind of track it in my mind
Wow.
as I go throughout the day. But some people might benefit from a calorie tracker.
Yes, I mean, I think either way, if you skip breakfast and you're only getting all your calories in 2 meals, you're gonna be in a slight deficit. Not for normally, yeah.
Yeah, it's very easy to be in a deficit normally by skipping breakfast. I do try to make sure that I get enough protein. That can sometimes be, going through the day, I can see how sometimes some days that's hard to get enough protein. So then I supplement with protein powder, and I use plant-based protein powder for that.
Is that
But
ethical choices, or you just find plant superior?
it's just what agrees most with my digestion.
Yeah.
Um, so whey protein would be, I imagine, fine for many people.
Okay, very good. Well, I want to get onto the testosterone piece at some point, but let's finish up the sort of the I guess nutritional element of
Sure.
it. So you're in a calorie deficit every day, but only mild 10%. It's
Hmm.
all Mediterranean. You use intermittent fasting. Where do you first of all what do you think about longer term fasts versus intermittent mild ones as you do? Do you find there's a place for extended periods of fasting?
I think there's some interesting research showing that long-term fasts could have benefit for people with autoimmune diseases or gut issues. Um, but it brings with it a big risk for muscle loss. So it's I think if your health is otherwise fine, that for me personally, I would stick to the intermittent fasting and only do a longer term fast if I was seeking to correct some sort of specific problem.
Mm. It's funny. The two things come to mind of um, Narendra Modi's just gone on Lex Friedman's podcast, which is an amazing interview, and he
Uh-huh.
talks about fasting for the sort of he goes for 7 day fasts, and he does it for spiritual reasons, but also as the way to practice discipline, and those benefits are very different to what we're talking about today. And the other side of the coin is always interested in when smart people change their mind on things, and I've been following Peter Attia for years. I'm sure you have as well. And
Hmm.
I know that's something he changed his mind on. He took fasting to a complete extreme where actually the loss of muscle mass just wasn't worth it. So yeah, I think it's quite key. Um, I think if people don't exercise, longer term fasting is like a better alternative. But that's just case independent. My dad
So,
being one example.
you think it could be a an alternative to exercise and people who don't exercise?
Yes, yeah. I'm specifically talking about autophagy, right? I know that you
Uh-huh.
can't measure it as such very easily through fasting yet, or the biological signature is difficult to quantify. But if one isn't exercising, it's like, well, where are you getting that? Maybe extended might be good. For example, my dad plays a lot of golf, but doesn't run or anything. He's got bad knees, but he'll
Uh-huh.
do like Sunday evening to Thursday, all good every week, and just no food. And I think he benefits from it. But yeah, the muscle loss is an interesting conundrum there.
And it's a spectrum, so you could tailor it to your um your risk profile or the amount of intensity you're looking for. So like a 7 day fast would be on one extreme end of the spectrum. Intermittent fasting is very mild. Just in my case, skipping breakfast. If you wanted to get a bit more intense, you could skip lunch as well and just have dinner that day, or just go 1 day without food entirely, like your dad does. Um, so yeah, you could adjust it based on your needs
Mm.
and what you think your body wants.
What I think you've nailed is you've because I've experimented with this kind of stuff before, and I've done like 1 meal a day things, but I do notice that my free testosterone would tend to trend slightly lower. Still good and reasonably in good healthy levels, but trend slightly lower whenever I take fasting to an extreme. So it seems like there's this spectrum of you want to get the calorie restriction without any effect on the endocrine system. It seems like
Mhm.
you're in that sweet spot. So you said your testosterone went up through it. That's amazing. So did tell us about that blood work, like your free, your SHGB, your total. What happened there?
So let's see. I have some numbers here I'll look up.
Brilliant. And I think just while you're looking, I just want to set the context for the listener as well. Daniel has a job. He has he works every day. He is not a retired billionaire whose only goal in life is to live as long. He's a normal functioning person. Is my point, and I think it gives a lot of hope for people who actually want to take these things on themselves. So
Yes, I my protocol really doesn't take much time at all. I think it requires self-control and discipline, but I feel like it makes me more productive in other areas of my life, just feeling so good. So definitely, I think it's a adds, in some ways, it adds more time to my day rather than taking time. So my total testosterone looks like it went from my baseline measurement to 1 year into my protocol. It went from 7.6 nanograms per milliliter to 8.3. So it's a small increase. Difficult to say whether it's just a random fluctuation or not, but at least it didn't go down.
Yeah, I think that's the concern, because calorie restriction in any form usually affects that, and I think that's it's a block for people thinking it's either or. Like, I can either have great endocrine system, put on muscle, feeling good, like everything associated with that, versus I'm optimizing for longevity, like go full David Sinclair, and there's a nice sweet spot in the middle where you don't have to have a trade-off. They're not mutually exclusive, which is cool.
Yeah, and that's the sweet spot that I'm trying to target. And then my lipids improved as well. My APOB declined by quite a bit.
What do you think was the key driver behind that?
I think so. We might be getting into some of the effects of my supplementation protocol with that one, but because I was already eating a Mediterranean diet and doing intermittent fasting when I did those baseline lab values.
Right.
So it's hard to say, but
okay. Well, maybe more it's like an externality of the or it's an effect of one of the supplementation. Just on before we end that, and I'm assuming, and I'm sure the listeners will be with me here, assuming you don't, there's not like the occasional chocolate or this. You're pretty regimented with things you don't eat as well, right?
Yes. So I do have the occasional sweet, but it's pretty rare. So my normal dessert that I'll have every day is dark chocolate, usually about 85% cacao, and then occasionally, once a week or so, maybe twice a week, I'll have something a bit sweeter, but in a small amount. And then if I'm on vacation, if I'm traveling, then I'll indulge more and have maybe once a day. So it's far from being a total prohibition against sweets, but it's definitely very limited. And then in terms of what I would call highly processed food or junk food, I exclude it almost entirely. So
okay, that makes a lot of sense. And when it comes to things like caffeine, you said you have a black coffee, one black coffee, two black coffees.
2 black coffees a day, or 1 to 2.
1 to 2. Yeah. Okay, nice one. And what about alcohol?
Alcohol, I try to limit it to 1 drink a week on average.
Nice. And what's your poison? A little beer, a cocktail, or?
Maybe like a glass of wine or a cocktail.
Okay, very good. Right. So again, within the realm of reason, not something unobtainable by any means at all. Any other points on the sort of diet, nutrition piece before we move on to exercise? Oh, I guess I got one. What's the time between dinner and when you go to bed?
Oh, yeah, that's become a hot topic lately.
It has.
So I try to eat, I try to start dinner sometime from 7 to 8, but sometimes I do end up eating a bit later than 8. And that's just because of my work schedule. And it's hard with my work schedule and also exercise to fit in dinner at the ideal early time. But I definitely avoid food after 10 p.m.
Okay,
And
great.
ideally, I'm not eating anything after 9 p.m.
Sure, but you're not finishing your last meal at like 11 a.m. or something like that.
No, definitely not. I could never do that. I could if I absolutely had to, but it would just really, the impact on my life and on my schedule would be really, really severe. So
yeah, I wouldn't like that. I don't like fasting that way around. Okay, wonderful. Well, let's get into the exercise bit, because I think the exercise gets people overcomplicate this so much, including me. Like, what's optimal? What's this? What's that? How did you view exercise going into the protocol? How did it change, if at all? Like, what did that protocol look like?
Sure. So in my protocol, I do a mix of cardio and weightlifting. And then within the cardio, I do a mix of zone 2, which is the less strenuous, more leisurely pace, and then zone 5, which is the intense really intense bursts of activity, of speed. Prior to doing this exercise protocol, um, my exercise was really focused on weightlifting. And then when I created my protocol, I thought, okay, I've been neglecting cardio for too long, so it's time to really get aggressive with the cardio too. Um, and then in the weightlifting component of my protocol, it's a focus on full body compound movements with barbells. I think that's the most efficient way to hit the most number of muscles at once, and also it it's just great for overall stability and functional strength. So I guess I can address the weightlifting and then the cardio
Yeah,
separately. So for the weightlifting, I aim to weightlift 4 times a week, and then I do the exercises that I do are overhead, barbell press, um, bench press, pull ups, dips, bent over barbell row, deadlifts, squats.
barbell squats.
Yes, yeah, barbell squats, and sometimes some lat pull downs and some shoulder isolation exercises.
Okay, but predominantly, compound movements and sets and reps.
10 sets, or sorry, 10 reps and 3 sets per exercise.
Okay, right. So not like an ungodly amount of volume.
No, I mean, that's partly because I'm content with the amount of muscle mass that I have right now. If I was trying to bulk, I would be doing more volume. But for just maintaining my muscle mass and staying in shape, in one workout, I do 3 different exercises, 3 sets per exercise, and then 10 reps per set. So you're looking at a total of 9 sets per
Okay.
exercise.
And what does your split look like?
Sorry, per workout.
Okay, and your split per, you said you got 4 sessions. What is
Oh yes, so I do a full body workout every
every?
each weightlifting workout.
Oh, right. Okay, so total volume over the week would actually be it's not like a 3 sets of 10 seems misleading in the context of the week of the volume, right?
Oh yeah, so it's in each workout I'm doing one um, upper body push exercise, one upper body pull exercise, and one leg or hip hinge exercise.
Okay, great. That's super clear. Um, and do you? Okay, no, that's and you feel like that amount of volume is just, as you said, it's I can keep my muscle mass, it keeps you strong, and that's okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. Really refreshingly not complicated. Um, I'm always trying to do like 8 sets of 8 or 10 sets of 10 and various different things. But
If I was
okay,
trying to bulk, I'd be doing something more aggressive and
yeah,
doing more volume. But for just maintaining, this has been working great for me.
love
And I
it.
haven't noticed any drop off in strength while sticking with this maintenance program.
Perfect. Okay. And when it gets to the zone 2 cardio, let's go with that. What's
Mhm.
what's the form? Are you a runner? Are you a cyclist?
So I run on the treadmill or power walk, and I just yeah, I try to keep my heart rate within a certain range, and then just do it for a while, for you know an hour or 40 minutes to an hour for a session.
And how many times, or I guess what's the total amount of time you spend in zone 2 over the week?
Oh, I guess it's probably like 2 hours.
2 hours. Okay. For some reason I thought you'd say more.
It's on the lower end for sure. I mean, I think Peter Attia would call for more, but
He would.
and I would do more. It's hard for me with the amount of time in my day between
Yeah.
my job and then also I'm weightlifting too. You know, it there's only so much time I have for exercise in the week, and I have to budget it between weightlifting and zone 2 and zone 5. So
Yeah, well, but your results would, say what you're doing is working, right? Which is the great thing. So, okay, so 2 hours
yeah,
spent in zone 2, 4 weight sessions, which I imagine like 45 to an hour,
yeah,
and then you've got the zone 5 piece.
yes, and so that's where I try to run a 6 minute mile on the treadmill.
Right. Okay, so that'll do it. And and you try and run a 6 minute mile on a treadmill, and how many times a week are you doing that?
um, 1 to 2 times a week.
1 to 2. Okay, cool. 1 to 2 times per week. And when you were designing this, did you think, um, how did you come to the conclusion that twice would be enough of high intensity exercise versus this zone two? Like, how did you end on this amount of total sort of exercise volume?
Um, so it's honestly just kind of based on what I enjoyed. So if I was trying to be totally optimal, I'm sure I want to tweak the ratio of zone 2 to zone 5 a bit more. But I do really enjoy explosive, fast movements. So um, I probably budgeted a bit more to the zone 5. But it's also for the convenience, since it's so quick, just a 6-minute mile. It's easy for me to slip it into an otherwise busy day. I can just quickly 6 minutes, run as fast as I can on the treadmill, hop off, shower, and then go about the rest of my day.
Wonderful. Yeah, we have a lot of interest in sort of metabolic health, and mitochondria keeps coming up on the podcast. And um, the there's this wonderful lady called Christy Storashuk, and she studies mitochondria, but specifically around high intensity exercise. And
Hmm.
she's like, "Well, I don't see any argument for zone two." And I've read the papers. I'm not convinced. And she just
Hmm.
canes zone five all the time, and yeah, it seems to be working. So it sounds like you're getting
Interesting.
a lot of benefit out of your zone five training.
So maybe, in her opinion, then maybe I'm doing the right thing by having the more time, or the focus at zone 5 kind of at the expense of zone 2.
Yeah, I think she would probably say that, although I will ask her the question and I'll get back to you. We'll do that. And so the diet exercise, next one would be lifestyle. So
Mhm.
what does that incorporate?
So in this one, I would group in things like sleep, stress management, socializing, and then also the avoiding or the minimizing alcohol, minimizing sweets, avoiding junk food,
Okay.
avoiding drugs. Um, yeah, all those I would group under lifestyle. I guess we've touched on all of those except sleep. Should I jump into sleep?
Let's go sleep.
All right, cool. So sleep. Um, let's see. I guess first of all, you want to budget enough time for sleep. So I aim to budget 8 hours a day for sleep. I don't always get that because sometimes between work and socializing and other things, it gets shortened down to 7. And then sometimes my body just wakes up naturally after 7 hours. So I think, oh, I guess my body didn't need 8 hours that day, maybe. But I do try to definitely give sleep the importance it deserves and prioritize budgeting time for it. And then before I go to bed, I wind down for at least 30 minutes, ideally an hour. And during that time, I read fiction because I find it helps me relax the most. Or if I watch TV, I watch something that's not too cognitively demanding. And then I wear blue light blocking glasses if I'm watching TV. And I
Mm.
did notice quite a big difference from starting the blue light blocking glasses.
It's funny. My partner and I I guess we've had them for a while, but we started being pretty religious with it. Like we're following the sun. As soon as it's dark, they're on. And we both noticed a big sort of increase in our sleep for sure. Anecdotally, it seems good. Um, your the interesting point about fiction as well. I am a big reader, and I read a lot of sort of biography stuff and nonfiction stuff before bed, and it does keep me up actually because
Yeah.
yeah. But sometimes it puts me to sleep. But I might actually start the fiction thing. I think that's kind of a good
So it's
hack. I
interesting
haven't
you
thought of.
noticed that. I noticed that as well. I was, reading history or reading some sort of a paper, a scholarly paper or something technical would definitely keep me up. Or reading the news, for example, would keep me up. So I thought, okay, it needs to be fiction.
Yeah.
And even though, like, I've been reading lately the Song of Ice and Fire series that Game of Thrones is based on. And even those are heavy books with a lot of complicated plots. The fact that it's fiction and it doesn't exist for some reason helps put me to sleep.
Mm. It's
So
funny. It's sort of like it's like letting go of. You're not trying to control. It's just sort of you flowing with the story a bit.
yeah,
Um,
exactly. It's taking me to a different world. I don't have to worry about the implications of what I'm reading or how what I'm reading could be used for some practical purpose.
yeah, nailed it. No, I can that resonates for sure. And you mentioned stress management as well. I mean, do you meditate? Do you have like a mindfulness practice that you incorporate?
Um, I don't formally meditate, but I do like to take walks. So I guess you could consider that a form of meditation. So if I'm feeling kind of stressed or anxious or fidgety or like I have energy to burn, like a nervous energy, then I just go do some laps around the neighborhood and
But
come
that's
back.
sporadic, less sort of regimented. That.
Yeah, exactly. Just kind of on an as needed basis.
Okay. Actually, that's an interesting question. Are you a religious counter of your step count?
Um, I'm not. My wife does track her steps, and then so if I have the similar routine to her that day, then I learn what my steps are. But I currently don't track my own steps.
Okay. But if you had like have to put like a rough guess on it, what would you reckon?
Um, I do definitely try to get 10,000 steps a day.
Okay.
Wait, is that? Oh,
10,000 steps a day is sort of like the benchmark.
yes,
As in,
that's
it's
that's what I thought. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Whatever the
yeah,
benchmark is. Yeah,
yeah. Nice.
and
That's your Apple Watch would ping with all sorts of fireworks if you hit 10,000.
yeah,
Nice.
I couldn't
Actually,
remember if it was a number like I knew it was somewhere around there, but yeah, 10,000.
okay, great. Love that. Okay, so that's sort of the lifestyle stuff. You said you're avoiding alcohol, drugs, and you have the occasional drink, but
Oh, on the sleep, one more thing I would add is before bed I do take either glycine or magnesium glycinate,
Hmm.
and then a microdose of melatonin.
A
Just
microdose of melatonin. Interesting. What
yes,
dosage?
anything from a quarter of a milligram to a milligram. Right
Okay.
now I'm ranging around. Right now I'm about half a milligram.
Okay, that is small. Yeah, I used to live in Singapore, and you can buy it over the counter there. Here in the
Oh,
UK, you can't. In America, you can buy it over the counter.
you can, yeah,
You
but it's
can.
typically sold in really big doses, like 3 milligrams, 5 milligrams, 10. I think I think part of it's because of the marketing. People think more is better, and the supplement manufacturers know that, so they compete by putting in more. But with melatonin, really, I think the research in my own personal experience shows that um, it's a range you should be looking at, a range that's close to the amount of melatonin that a young person's body would make naturally.
Okay, interesting. I mean, it's potent. You know, if you've taken a full pill and which is like 3 to 5 milligrams, right? Or grams, sorry, grams or milligrams? What am I talking about?
Milligrams.
Milligrams. Thank you. Because you wake up and you feel like you've been hit by a bus. It doesn't feel good at all. But you get the
Yeah.
dosage right. It's interesting. The I know Andrew Huberman's got some points, but he doesn't like it orally because he thinks it might have an effect on the endocrine system. Um, Contrast that with Dom D'Agostino, who actually has had no issues with melatonin on the endocrine system at all, and like you, I think microdoses before bed.
Yeah, I can definitely see how taking large doses could affect the endocrine system because it is at the end of the day it's a hormone. But when you're taking microdoses that are in line with amounts that the body naturally produces, I haven't noticed any negative impact on me. And I think the research supports that it doesn't disturb the body's natural production of melatonin.
Mm. I mean, so the other one, okay, so magnesium bisglycinate or magnesium glycinate crosses the
Uh-huh.
blood-brain barrier. Other other forms of magnesium can't. Glycine, low core body temperature before bed.
Exactly. You have to lower the core body temperature.
Wonderful. And what would be the dosage of glycine?
Um, so looking at just pure glycine, I take anywhere from 2 to 3 grams.
2 to 3 grams. Okay. And your magnesium dosage?
The magnesium glycinate, I think it's the magnesium is 150 milligrams or 200 milligrams. I forget how much glycine that corresponds to, but yeah, the magnesium itself I think is 200 milligrams.
Okay, nice one. Super simple. And do you have an 8 sleep or you sleep with the sleep mask on or anything like that?
No, I do use a white noise machine though.
Interesting. When did you incorporate that?
It kind of started by accident several years ago when my neighbor's AC unit was having lots of problems, and it started making this horrible, like clanking sound randomly throughout the night. It would just out of nowhere you'd just hear,
Not
and it would
good.
wake me up. And I thought, I can't live like this. So I got a white noise machine to drown it out, and then I found that it actually made me sleep better. So I've always used it since then, and I have a small one that I use when I travel. So I'm never without a white noise machine.
Okay, I'm going to try white noise this evening, and I'll let you know how it goes. Interesting. I never heard that before. And are you tracking your sleep through some sort of wearable?
I'm not. So this is something that's on my list of things to do. I do want to start tracking my sleep. So I'm not right now. Right now, I just go based on how I feel. I think I'm pretty good at judging when I've had a good night's sleep because you can tell when you wake up, you feel relaxed but energized. You feel like you're in a good parasympathetic state. So that's how I currently
Yeah.
track my sleep, just through instinct.
I think the instinct piece is lost. My partner Eloise, who's the producer of this podcast, she has a wonderful instinct for things like to do with health, and I think I've gotten myself on this sort of crutch of over optimizing and having to look at the data all the time. And actually, you want to reconnect with the sort of intuition of it, right? Did I sleep well? Do I feel good? As opposed to my watch is giving me points, right?
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. Ultimately, if you're not feeling good, that's the most important thing. Is are you feeling good or are you not? I
yeah,
think.
nice
I
one.
mean, yeah, if there's a big contradiction between what your watch is saying and how you feel, then probably further research is needed.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes. The map isn't the territory, right? Um,
yeah,
okay.
exactly.
When it so we've done exercise and we've done exercise and recovery, we've done nutrition and fasting. I think it's we've done covered lifestyle, specifically the anti-stress, the sleep, the what you avoid,
Mhm.
your step count, your wearables or lack of wearables, your lovely white noise machine, which I'm going to clone. And I think that leaves us to the icing on the cake, which you did make a very good point at the start, which was once everything else is in check, then you can open the door to supplementation.
Yes, exactly. So, how should we do this? Do you want to just
I guess let's start from maybe like let's go upstream to your two highest order sort of principles, like from an epigenetic point of view, and then from a telomere point of view. Like, how did you get to the downstream implementation of like X supplement? Maybe we start there.
sounds good? So, so as I mentioned earlier, uh, from my own reading of the research, I concluded that epigenetic dysregulation and telomere attrition were likely the two most important of the hallmarks of aging. And so, if I address those, then I should get spillover benefits to the other hallmarks. And I based that conclusion on studies on cellular reprogramming experiments using the Yamanaka factors. So, that's basically where scientists take cells in a lab and they they use either through an engineered virus or through certain chemicals. They trigger these cells to activate their Yamanaka genes, which are genes that are normally only expressed during the process of creating an embryo. And the expression of those genes causes the cell to reset all of its epigenetic marks. So its gene expression becomes like that of a an embryonic stem cell. So that
Well,
you could take a skin cell from an old person, make it activate the Yamanaka factors, and that skin cell would become like an embryonic stem cell, which is really incredible.
wow. Did he win the Nobel Prize for it as well?
Yes, yeah, Mr. Yamanaka won the Nobel Prize for that. And and then there's also what are called part. So what I just described is total cellular reprogramming, and then there's also there's partial cellular reprogramming where the Yamanaka factors are only expressed for a short period of time. They're pulsed, and so that resets the cell's epigenetic state without taking it back to being a stem cell. So in my example, if you took a skin cell from an old person, partial cellular reprogramming would make it like a skin cell of a young person, but it would still be a skin cell. It wouldn't have turned into a stem cell. And what these experiments showed was that when you do um, either full or partial cellular reprogramming, the cells the proteins produced by the cells, the metabolites produced by the cells, the structure of the cell, many other symptoms of aging get reversed as a result of this reset of the cell's epigenetic landscape. But one thing that was important to note is that one important distinction between the complete and the partial cellular reprogramming was that when you only do partial cellular reprogramming, so the cell isn't turned into a stem cell, the cell's telomeres don't get rejuvenated. And so that told me that telomeres really are separated from epigenetics in the framework of the hallmarks, that there are two different issues that need to be addressed, that addressing just epigenetics wouldn't necessarily help with telomeres.
Okay.
And so in my protocol, the two key parts of my protocol, one is to supplement with alpha ketoglutarate, which is it's a natural component of the Krebs cycle, and it helps activate the TET enzymes, which are these enzymes found in the cell that are able to demethylate DNA. So the TET enzymes remove methylation from sites on the genome, and that helps the genes get expressed better. And then on the other side, to address telomeres, I took NAD precursors. So I took a mix of NMN and NAD plus, or sorry, of NMN and NR to boost NAD plus levels, because there was research showing that when NAD plus levels are increased, they're able to activate sirtuin genes, and then some of these sirtuin genes prevent telomere attrition that occurs when cells divide. So I'm not necessarily seeking to elongate my telomeres, but just keep them from shortening when the cells divide. And if you can keep them from shortening when cells divide from stem cells, that could appear in a telomere test as an elongation of your telomeres, because stem cells naturally have longer telomeres than normal cells. So when a normal cell differentiates from a stem cell, there's a significant amount of telomere attrition that occurs. And if you can slow down that attrition, you'll have a new cell produced from the stem cell that has longer telomeres.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And so just on the alpha ketoglutarate, what was the dosage that you took?
I took 600 milligrams a day. And I should note that all the supplements I took were in a liposomal form. And there's good research showing that liposomal preparations increase the absorption of the supplement. It's even actually a technique used with some prescription drugs to increase absorption.
My understanding is it's just bound with a fat.
Yes, exactly. So it's just like it's a fatty bubble, and then the supplement ingredient is inside that bubble. And when you consume it, it survives stomach acid, and then it gets absorbed directly into through the small intestine. So it helps prevent intestinal degradation and stomach acid degradation.
And that was across everything we're going to talk about supplementation twice. It was all liposomal form. Apart from one, if I'm
apart from the glycine and the magnesium, I treat those separate from the supplement protocol, because I've been doing them for years for sleep. So going forward, when I talk about the supplement protocol, I'm referring to the supplements that I took specifically to address epigenetics and telomeres.
Wonderful. Okay, that's super clear. So we have alpha ketoglutarate, 600 milligrams in the morning.
Anytime before the evening, because I found that if I took it too late in the day, it disrupted my sleep.
Okay, fine, nice. Yeah. So maybe after lunch or something. And with the NMN and the NR, what would what's the dosage of each of them?
I think it was. Let's see. Let me consult my notes.
I think I've got your notes up here as well, actually. Because my understanding as well, that was it was in both of those were in a liposomal blend on its own, like as one product, right?
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
It was a liposomal blend of 250 milligrams of NMN, 180 milligrams of NAD plus, and 160 milligrams of NR.
Okay, nice. Yeah, it's interesting. There's a lot of controversy around whether NAD was worth it, and you've clearly read all that research, I'm sure, and come to the conclusion that yes, this has a place in your protocol.
Yes. So I find that there's a lot of hype and counter hype going on right now with NAD. So initially there was a lot of hype about it that I think got ahead of the science, and then now we're going through a phase of like counter hype or negative hype, where I think it's become cool to criticize it. But I think the truth is that it has a lot of really compelling results in animals, in animal studies. There's human studies coming out that show good results, but still there's a lot of work to be done to replicate in humans the same results that were found in animals. But then just at the level of the biochemistry, there's I think there's a lot of promise. Like the paper that I read that found that increase in NAD and by extension sirtuin activation reduced telomere attrition. Um, that was just showing the mechanics of how NAD plus works in the cell, and then there was an animal study that confirmed the telomere benefits. So I thought, okay, this this has a place in my protocol.
Wonderful. And okay, so that's what sold it on. That's what sold you on the benefits of NR, NAD plus, and NMN, all of which are precursors to NAD, which is super vital for your body. If you took it all out of your body, you wouldn't be able to live. Natural levels decline as you get older. I'm sure our audience is pretty well versed on that kind of stuff. And if not, there's lots of resources out there. If you type in sort of NAD, you can find lots of podcasts. Lifespan by David Sinclair is quite a good book on that. The Where else did you go supplement wise?
So I also took 8 milligrams of spermidine in liposomal form, and spermidine also has benefits for uh, epigenetic maintenance and also for telomeres as well. And then spermidine is a potent activator of autophagy. So you were talking earlier about what's the best way to increase autophagy, and really, I think something like spermidine plus uh, intermittent fasting or mild fasting can be quite powerful. And actually, there was a study done that found that when you're fasting, the benefits of fasting for autophagy are dependent on the actions of spermidine. And if you remove spermidine, then the fasting isn't able to trigger autophagy as well.
Wow, I didn't
So
know that.
yeah, so spermidine is definitely a key player in the whole autophagy process.
It's funny because I feel we were talking about NMN or NAD precursors before, and they follow this sort of Amara hype cycle where they're overhyped in the short run and underhyped in the long run, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
feel like spermidine had that, but a few years before, super overhyped. Everyone thought it was everything, and then everyone died off. But actually, the research was really quite promising, and you seem quite bullish on it yourself.
Yeah, I am. I think there's a lot of good research on it. I mean, we still need a lot more research in humans. I think it's the general trend for all of these supplements. But in animals, at least, there was a paper that found that spermidine increased the health span and lifespan of, it was rats, I believe, maybe mice, one of the two for sure. But it increased their health span and lifespan, and also increased their fertility. So I thought that was a really interesting finding. And then we're learning more from the mechanistic, the biochemical perspective of the role that spermidine plays in the cells. And then that supports some of the results we saw in the animal studies. We know it's safe in humans, or we're very confident it's safe in humans because it's been consumed in food for a long time, and there's um, large studies in humans that have found a correlation between spermidine consumption and lengthened lifespan. So I think it has, as far as far as the longevity supplement can have good research behind it, I think spermidine is one of those.
Nice. Well, yeah, I'm definitely gonna try that. I mean, the punchline to all this is I'm gonna try your exact protocol for a number of months and see how I get on.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah. So
Do before and after testing.
yes, I will make sure to do that. And I will attribute you to my results. I'm just going to clone what you did because that sounds pretty good. Um,
The pressure's on now.
no, oh God. Well, the thing is, it's wonderful because you're taking all these bits and bobs from different research and mechanistically being like, okay, well that should apply, right?
Mm,
But it's not 100%. But then you have your own N of one case, which is super powerful. And I see this, my background sort of health startups and entrepreneurship stuff. And previously, all the emphasis on health products was on the data. And you can see this shift where it's now actually, yeah, you still need good data, but you can have less strong data and lots of replication of N of one experience to validate things, which has completely
mm.
changed the whole landscape of it. Um, alpha ketoglutarate, NAD precursors, liposomal spermidine, or liposomal, all these forms. Where else do you go?
So then I also took 1 gram of liposomal vitamin C, and I'm sure your audience is familiar with all the benefits of vitamin C, but one benefit that's not as well known is that vitamin C is an important cofactor, along with alpha ketoglutarate, for the activation of the TET enzymes. So if you're going to make the TET enzymes run faster with the alpha ketoglutarate, it's important to also supply a sufficient amount of vitamin C.
What are the TET enzymes? Let's go into them.
So the TET enzymes are these enzymes that are in each cell that are able to demethylate DNA. So when a site on your DNA, when a gene is methylated, that means its activity is suppressed, and demethylating it helps bring its activity back. And so with age, you see a pattern of hypermethylation, excessive methylation at certain sites of the genome, and then undermethylation in the rest of the genome. And the TET enzymes, we've learned through some studies for longevity, but also studies for cancer. When the TET enzymes aren't working properly, you get this pattern of hypermethylation at certain sites of the genome, and then global undermethylation. So really, by making the TET enzymes work as efficiently and as powerfully as possible, you can, at least my hope is that you can help your cells stay one step ahead of the normal process of epigenetic deregulation that occurs with aging.
Well, wonderful.
I think the default state of our TET enzymes is to be not quite fast enough to stay ahead of the epigenetic dysregulation. But if we can speed them up and make them work harder, then maybe it's possible to stay one step ahead. And some people naturally have more effective TET enzymes than others, and people that have defective TET enzymes, they do get a pattern of epigenetic dysregulation that does look similar to aging, or to that happens with cancer. So I think it remains to be seen how successful boosting the TET enzymes is to treat aging, but I think there's some interesting science to suggest it could work well. And certainly for me, my epigenetic age did reduce across multiple tests, so it seems to have worked well for me, at least for the first year.
I'm very interested in what you just said, because the benefit of this podcast is I get to speak to brilliant people like yourself, but I get to tie threads between different people. So we've had the wonderful Thomas Seyfried on, Dr. Thomas Seyfried, who is, I guess, the pioneer of the metabolic theory of cancer, where he doesn't think it's a genetic disease at all, and he thinks, and is pretty sure on the research he's done, that it occurs when a cell's mitochondria is damaged, and then it switches energy systems from how a normal cell functions to an ancient pathway of fermentation, needing glucose or glutamate and or both to multiply. And what you said was super interesting in the sense of what happens to if you can speed up the cell's functioning through the TET enzyme, or if that shows promise to starve cancer away, or I guess keep cancer at bay, is it playing in the mitochondria in some way, shape, or form, which would be consistent with anti-cancer theory from his point of view, and your focus on longevity. I don't know. I'm just trying to loosely tie two threads
Yeah,
there. Not very
no,
well.
that's a good thread. There is definitely a mitochondrial connection because alpha ketoglutarate is a key player in the Krebs cycle, which is the cycle in the mitochondria that results in the production of ATP, energy. And alpha ketoglutarate is very important for metabolic flexibility. So um, having ideal alpha ketoglutarate levels helps someone better switch between burning glucose and burning fat for energy. And there is a connection there. I mean, I'm not quite sure yet what it is, but the fact that, you mentioned the mitochondrial connection, and alpha ketoglutarate does play this important role in the mitochondrial Krebs cycle. So I think there's more research to be done there.
Interesting. Okay,
Be a promising area.
Well, I'm glad you took my unarticulate tangent and saved me there with some sense of logic. So yeah, appreciate that. And yeah, it is interesting tie. So is that it? So we've got liposomal alpha ketoglutarate, NAD precursors, spermidine, 1 gram of liposomal vitamin C is in that, and that's a lot.
And then the last one is 75 milligrams of liposomal green tea extract, standardized to 70% EGCG, which is the active ingredient in green tea. That's thought to be responsible for its anti-cancer and epigenetic benefits.
Yeah, well, it's definitely an interesting and on that thread I was trying to piece together as well. I do know ECGC blocks glutamine. Not as strong as like other hardcore drugs, but it does block glutamine in the body, which is super interesting. And so for anti-cancer protocols of that approach, you block glucose through sort of ketogenic diets, but you block glutamine through other mechanisms, and ECGC is used sometimes. So what was the selling point behind you using ECGC?
So it does play a role it does help the body's epigenetic maintenance machinery. It's a DNA methyltransferase inhibitor, so it does help prevent the excessive methylation that can occur at certain key sites of the genome. You recall I mentioned with age that certain key sites of the genome get overmethylated and others get undermethylated. So by mildly reducing DNA methyltransferase activity, you can help reduce the excessive methylation that occurs at certain sites of the genome. There's a growing body of literature on that topic, and EGCG is a fairly effective one, although a mild one. Mild is all you need, though. The potent ones are really only being used for cancer treatment, and they have a lot of side effects. So a mild DNA methyltransferase inhibitor, and then there's a decent amount of research showing that green tea has anti-cancer benefits, and then there's a lot of research showing that it just has general health and metabolic benefits. And then you can feel pretty confident that it's safe, given that green tea has been consumed for thousands of years at this point, and it's been recognized throughout its history to be good for health. So I just thought, why not toss that in too?
Yeah, throw it in. Why not? That's good. But it's funny because you've got to draw the line somewhere, and you see lots of people like yourself who are experimenting in the longevity space and with their own machinery and own body, that the supplement list is just never ending, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why did you feel like this was a good point to draw a line in the sand and be like, that's the lot?
So I wanted it to be a protocol that was simple enough that if it worked well for me, that other people in my life could follow it without too much difficulty and without too much expense, and get some benefits as well. And then I thought better to start out simpler and see if that yields results, and then add on later to see if I can get more dramatic results.
Okay, brilliant. Like a chef, right? You can't take soul
Start
away.
with the smallest number of ingredients.
Okay, wonderful. And the results, because there's people spending millions a month. There's people spending a lot a month. There's people, trying to simplify this protocol like you. Am I right in saying you were number one in the world for a time?
I was for a brief amount of time. So to qualify for the Rejuvenation Olympics, you have to have 3 Dunedin pace tests over the past within the past 2 years. And so when I got my third test, that allowed me to be eligible, and my score at that point was enough to put me at the top of the leaderboard with an average pace of 0.62, meaning that for every one chronological year that passes, I supposedly only age 0.62 years epigenetically. Sadly, I lost my number one spot a couple months after I gained it to a man named Aldo, who there's not much about him out there, so I can't really say what he's doing. And then just recently, like just a few days ago, Brian Johnson beat both me and Aldo. He jumped to the top of the pack, took the number one spot, and he has an average pace that's really low right now. I think let's see.
Because he's been on this big journey of experimentation, right? And it's very interesting. You sort of seem to skip to the front of the queue.
Yes, so I was number one for I think a couple months. Then I was number two. I've been number two for a while now, for like half a year. And then just a few days ago, I got pushed down to number three. Brian is now number one with an average pace of 0.54. Aldo is still number two with an average pace of 0.58. And then I'm number three with an average pace of 0.62.
Wow.
So Brian, I don't know. I really want to know exactly what allowed him to just jump up like that. Because before, I think he was number 4 or 5, and then he just rocketed up to the top. I suspect it's either his plasmapheresis that he's been doing or his hyperbaric oxygen chamber.
Well, and I guess because he's so public with it, what he's doing, there wasn't an additional supplement or anything like that.
Um, he's very public about what he does, but he releases updates from time to time, and he hasn't released an update yet clarifying what caused him to jump to the top.
Okay, interesting. So you'll be watching that update with keen anticipation, no doubt.
Yes, exactly.
And this Aldo chap, I've been actually, like I thought, okay, I'm going to find this Daniel Lewis man. I'm going to speak to him. I'm going to see what the story is all about. I have tried to find Aldo with no luck. So Aldo, if you are listening to this, we'd love to speak to you.
Yes, please, Aldo, let us know what you're doing.
Absolutely, yeah. Maybe we could do a episode with you, Daniel, and Aldo. That could be kind of fun, like a little.
I love that. Yeah,
it'd be super good. Just bounce back and forth, and I try not to mess it up. So it's outstanding the results. I'm sure you've had so much attention and sort of publicity off the back of it, and people wanting to know your protocol. When you speak to people who think, "Oh my God, tell me what you're doing," like what do you tell them, and where do people get longevity wrong, do you think?
Oof, there's a lot of places. I think one is that a lot of people think when they think longevity or anti-aging, they think just the skin, and the skin is, I think, from a cosmetic perspective, from an appearance perspective, but the skin is just such a small part of it. You think about all your organs. Really, I'm most concerned about my health at the cellular level and the organ level. The skin is just a nice side effect of staying healthy everywhere else. And then you have to deal with the comments like, "Oh, I wouldn't want to live a long time because at the end it's going to be so sad and hard, and I'm going to be unhealthy." And I respond, "No, you don't understand. I don't want to just live a long time. I want to live in great condition. I care more about maximizing my health span than my lifespan. But if you maximize your health span, by extension, you're also going to maximize your lifespan." So the two are linked. I'm definitely not interested in just maximizing my lifespan and then being, in a nursing home or a wheelchair for the last 30 years of my life. So that's something that people, I find, get confused. And then you get into these philosophical arguments with people too, where they say, "Oh, well, we shouldn't try to mess with the human body. It is what it is." But to that, I would just say, well, then why do you take any prescription drugs or take any sort of medical treatment? Just let your disease run its course and let what's supposed to happen happen.
Yeah, it borders on nihilism. That I think it's
Yeah,
like, well, why do anything? Like, why?
exactly.
Yeah,
Why even bother crossing, like looking both ways before you cross the street? What's going to happen is going to happen.
yeah, yeah. I'm a believer in the more agency of your health than meets the eye, and you're living proof of that. Am I right in saying your telomere is actually lengthened?
Um, they did. So at the start of my protocol, I had a telomere length of the average 26-year-old or 27-year-old,
And how old are
and
you
then
now?
um, and then by my last measurement point, it was the average 18-year-old. Um,
Wow. So
so yeah, that gave me pause. I thought, wow, that's a very dramatic change. But just based on what I know about telomeres and what I've read about how NAD plus and the sirtuins impact telomeres, I don't think I've actually made the telomeres in my existing cells grow. I think what's happened is that when my cells are differentiating from my stem cells, that I just reduce the rate of telomere attrition that occurs when a normal cell differentiates from a stem cell. And so
okay,
that gets reflected in the result is a longer telomere length, but that's something distinct from actually growing the telomeres in your existing cells.
understood. But you could take it as a metric of, gee, my telomeres are way healthier than they were.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, right. So, and the results in aggregate from were there any benchmarks that you weren't so happy with, or was it just all over the board? Actually, this is significant improvement.
It was thankfully improvement all over the board. I was happy with everything. So my my Dunedain pace was excellent. We talked about that already. My omic age, which is a, a, a particular epigenetic test that tells you your epigenetic age at this point in time, decreased by, it was like, I think 2 years. Let's see here. In 1 year, I think it decreased by 2 years. Um,
Wow.
let's see. Here we go. 1.6 years. Yeah, in 1 year, I decreased it by 1.6 years. And then we just discussed telomeres. So that one went from 27 to 18. My immune cell ratios improved by a lot. So I got a lot new naive T cells, which is a sign of immune system rejuvenation. That naive in this case means freshly produced T cells. And that can be a sign that my thymus, which is a little a little organ that lives here in the neck, that helps produce T cells. That could be a sign that my thymus is working better. The thymus naturally declines with age. Um, my symphony age, which is an epigenetic measure of organ health. I improved in each of the 11 organ systems. My age decreased, and then my composite organ age went from 26 at baseline to 20 after a year.
Wow. And just to give some context, if you don't mind me asking, how old are you actually by birthday years? As
So I was 33 and a half when I started the protocol, and then I was around 34 and a half with these when I got my 1 year results, and I'm 35 now.
wow. Okay. So, and you went from having the organs of someone who's 26 to someone who's 20.
Yeah, according to that test, yeah.
That must feel pretty good.
Yeah, it felt very nice.
Good. And did you have this? Did you notice? What did you notice most about the protocol? Aside from the quantitative stuff, the qualitative stuff, what did you notice? Any differences, if ever?
um, so I would say, um, when waking up, my eye area used to be kind of puffy and darker, and that disappeared. Um, I had more energy during the day. My strength in the gym increased, and I think that's about it. It was all pretty subtle. I mean, nice changes. Those are all good things to have, but it wasn't. I didn't feel dramatically different. But I expect, I'm still fairly young, so probably at my age, it's less likely. And I was already in good shape, in good health beforehand, so probably less likely for me to experience a drastic difference in how I feel.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you were pretty healthy before as well, right? So, yeah, it's super interesting.
Just one more thing I want to add to the testing is I also measured my metabolomic age, which is an estimate of how old you are based on the levels of 600 different chemicals in your blood. And my metabolomic age decreased by 3 years over the 1 year of my protocol. And then I did all my standard lab values. Those all improved. So different cholesterol measures, hormones, um, and then also my inflammation levels decreased as well. So that would be my CRP and my IL-6. Those both decreased.
Wow, that's super interesting. I mean, your diet, I imagine, would have played I mean, all of these play factors together. I was going to say the diet. All I do know is when I go into ketosis, my C-reactive protein goes to basically zero, which is super kind of interesting.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh, nice.
and that's consistent across lots of other. I guess most people, when they try it, they're reasonably healthy. The inflammation just drops, but does come back if you reintroduce the sort of carbohydrate back in. But what carbs are you actually eating? I'm interested with the Mediterranean.
Vast majority are slow burning carbs. So I try to avoid things like things that are high in sugar. So my carbs are mainly in the form of vegetables, potatoes, sweet potatoes, quinoa, um, lentils, different types of beans.
Right, nice. But you said you had you have some toast every now and again.
Oh yeah, I do have some toast every now and then, but
Right.
just small amounts.
Yeah. Okay. But
I'll just put some olive oil on the toast.
Yeah, nice. That's delicious. I think it's very refreshing, your protocol, right? It's refreshingly simple and it's refreshingly easy to follow. And as you've said, that was the goal going into it. Um, it, Not that I want to try and complicate your protocol at all. If you were to, if you're going again, if you're thinking of optimizing it, you're not the number one spot anymore, but you're still up there. What, if anything, are you going to add, remove, or how would you change your protocol further moving forward? How are you thinking about that?
I think I would do some in-depth testing on any nutritional deficiencies I might have, and then update my diet to specifically address those nutritional deficiencies. And then, as we discussed earlier, we were talking about methylation cycle blocks and how people have genetic predispositions for those. I would formally make it part of my protocol to do a round of genetic testing and then to feed those results into a methylation genome analysis software to see what blocks people might have, what difficulties in conversion of different methylation products people might have. I think that's very important to address because if you're going to speed up your methylation cycle to try and activate the TET enzymes and do the sirtuins and all those other things, you want the cycle spinning as smoothly as possible. And then I think I would add in some more of the basics. So vitamin D, and people that aren't eating oily fish as much as me, I would add in omega-3 and omega-3 capsules. I mean,
Have you ever had your Omega index done?
I haven't, but I did do the True Health test by True Diagnostic that just came out, and they do measure an epigenetic proxy of your omega-3 status, and mine was on the high end of normal.
Okay.
Not too surprising.
No, not too surprising. Okay, brilliant. So, and those would be the only tweaks?
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well,
And then I am looking into sulforaphane. I think there's a lot of promise behind sulforaphane.
Yes.
So,
tell us about what is it? Tell us about the NRF2 pathway. Is that right?
yes, so it activates the NRF2 pathway, which is the major detoxification pathway in our cells. It helps boost glutathione, which is the master antioxidant in the cell that recycles vitamin C. I mentioned earlier how vitamin C levels are important for the functioning of the TET enzymes. And then sulforaphane also is an HDAC inhibitor, which means that it helps, it may help the body's epigenetic maintenance machinery work more efficiently.
Brilliant. Yeah, I've taken sulforaphane before, but not in this context. So I might try that as well. The super interesting thing I'd love to ask you about is I guess if you looked at this whole thing as a cake, supplements would be the icing, and the sprinkles on top might be the sort of the other traditional biohacks that are getting all the rage. Is there a place for hot, cold, red light, near infrared, all those other things in your protocol?
Definitely. So I do have a red light panel, although I don't use it regularly enough to really um, be confident in attributing any of my results to it. But my wife has an interesting experiment that she did where she fell and cut both her knees and her legs, or one of her yeah, she cut both her knees and her legs, and then she exposed one of her legs to red light, and then the other one she didn't. So she was doing kind of A/B test with herself. And then the leg that she exposed to red light healed noticeably faster than the leg that wasn't exposed to red light. So I think there definitely is a place for red light therapy in health and recovery. So I do want to, as part of my New Year's resolution, I do want to use my red light panel more. And then I do take cold showers from time to time. If I had a cold plunge pool, I would use that, but I don't. And I love the infrared sauna. I use it from time to time, but not too regularly. But if I had one, I would certainly be using it all the time.
Mm. Yeah, me too. It gets pretty cold in England, so we have an ice bath we use in the winter and things.
Yeah.
It's good fun. But I think the important thing is to note that you've had these amazing results without any of the, I guess, majoring in the minors that happens in this space a bit. A red light panel's not going to solve your, it's not going to get you more aerobically fit, right? You've got to do the work, and
Exactly.
which is underpinning all of it, which you clearly do. Is there? We will wrap this up. Although I could talk to you all day. You're a fascinating man. Is there anything that you are excited by in the research? Could be a compound, could be a protocol. What research are you most excited by when it comes to longevity?
I think I'm really excited by the research on cellular reprogramming and specifically using chemicals to reprogram cells. There's a lot of good research coming out in this area, exciting research. So there's recent research in rats where they actually cured rats of blindness with chemicals that epigenetically reprogrammed the cells in their eyes and in the nerves that connect the eyes to the brain. And it's just a matter of more experiments and fine tuning the delivery of these chemicals into the body. But I think it's possible in the future that we'll have partial chemical reprogramming cocktails that us humans can take that'll do what I'm trying to do with my protocol right now, but just much more powerfully and faster.
Wow, that's how far away do you think we are from that?
Oof. Decades, but I don't know. These things can sometimes move way faster than you expect, and then other times they can stall out for long periods of time. So hard to say, but I'm reasonably confident that in our lifetime we'll see it happen.
And peptides?
I'm interested in peptides. I read about them, but I haven't used them. But I'm interested in a couple of the ones that are supposed to be good for healing, like BPC 157. I've heard some interesting anecdotes from people that have taken them and gotten good results.
Yes.
So if I ever get injured, we'll see. Maybe I'll dabble in that. But hopefully, knock on wood, I'll avoid the injuries.
Yeah, absolutely. Got to keep you healthy. You're the sort of you're you're the guinea pig we all want to clone and copy, which is great. It meant that in the most respectful way that you're not actually a guinea pig.
I'm a happy, willing guinea pig.
Good, great.
Just a cautious one, though. A cautious one.
A cautious one, absolutely. Okay, well, we'll end with some quickfire, but quickfire questions, if that's all good.
Sure, yeah.
Great. Okay, so you're obviously super well read and enjoy reading the literature and things. What books would you say have shaped your worldview around this the most?
Around longevity?
Let's go with longevity, but then other books that you might recommend as well.
Okay. Well, Peter Attia's recent book, Outlive, I thought was really good. Has a lot of great actionable advice in there for people. I'd say when it comes to longevity, really most of my view on it has been shaped by articles on blogs and then by research papers. And for the blogs, I really like the blog by Josh Middledorf, who's a professor in California who's been specializing in longevity research for many years now. And then I honestly, there's a forum called longecity.org. It's like the word longevity, but replace the V with a C. And that's a forum of like-minded biohackers and longevity enthusiasts. And there's some people on there that really have a great understanding of science. And I've learned a lot just by reading their posts and then following up on the research references they provide.
Okay, wonderful. We'll put that link in the show notes for sure. And yeah, Josh Middledorf will be getting an email from us very soon.
Nice.
Do you have any